What if you're not stuck? What if you're not broken? What if the real problem is you're just asleep? Not physically, mentally, emotionally. Drifting through days that look the same, thinking the same thoughts, reacting the same way, and calling it life. And the scariest part? You don't even realize it. Because when you're asleep like this, everything feels normal. Waking up early feels hard. Taking risks feels scary. Changing your life feels impossible. But staying the same? That feels comfortable. And that's exactly the trap. You're not lost. You've just been repeating a version of yourself for so long. It started to feel real. Let me ask you something. Be honest. Does it ever feel like you're just going through the motions? Like your days blur together, like you're busy, but not really moving forward? Like something is off, but you can't explain what? Yeah, that's not laziness. That's not failure. That's the feeling of being asleep in your own life. And here's where it gets real. Nobody wakes you up. There's no alarm, no moment where everything suddenly makes sense. You just keep going. Until one day, you look back and realize you weren't really living. You were just existing. And that realization? It hits harder than failure ever could. Because failure means you tried. This means you never even started. But wait, this is where things change. Because the moment you even question your life, the moment you start feeling like something's wrong, that's not confusion. That's awareness. That's the first crack in the illusion. And most people, they ignore it. They scroll it away. They distract themselves. They tell themselves, it's fine. Everyone feels like this. But deep down, you know that's not true. Because if it was fine, you wouldn't feel this way. Let me say something that might sting a little. You don't need more motivation. You don't need another video. You don't need to figure everything out. You need to wake up. And waking up doesn't feel good. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. It forces you to see things you've been avoiding. The habits, the excuses, the patterns you keep repeating. The version of you that keeps choosing easy over meaningful. And here's the part nobody tells you. You've been trained to stay asleep. From the moment you were younger, follow the path, play it safe, don't question too much, fit in, be realistic. And slowly, without realizing it, you stopped thinking for yourself. You stopped asking, what do I actually want? Instead, you started asking, what's expected of me? And that's how it happens. Not overnight, but slowly, quietly, until one day, you wake up in a life you didn't consciously choose. And now you feel stuck, not because you can't move, but because you forgot how to think differently. Think about it for a second. How many decisions you've made were actually yours? Not influenced, not expected, not automatic. Yours. Yeah, exactly. But don't panic, because this next part changes everything. Waking up isn't about changing your whole life overnight. It's about noticing. That's it. Noticing your thoughts, noticing your patterns, noticing the moments where you go on autopilot, like when you say, I'll start tomorrow, or I'm just tired, or now's not the right time. Those aren't random thoughts. That's your mind keeping you asleep, keeping you safe, keeping you exactly where you are. Because your brain doesn't care about your dreams. It cares about comfort, familiarity, predictability. even if it's making you miserable. And that's the twist. The thing holding you back isn't your situation. It's your unconscious loyalty to staying the same. That's why change feels so hard. You're not just fighting your circumstances, you're fighting your identity. The version of you you've been reinforcing every single day. But here's the good news. If you learned it, you can unlearn it. If you became this version of yourself, you can become someone else. But first, you have to see it clearly, without sugarcoating it, without blaming the world, without telling yourself comforting lies. And yeah, that's uncomfortable. Most people won't do it. Most people would rather stay asleep than face the truth. So let me ask you something. Which one are you right now? Still asleep or starting to wake up? Don't answer too fast, because your life depends on that answer more than you think. And what comes next? This is where it gets deeper than you expect. Because waking up isn't just about awareness. It's about what you do after you see the truth. And trust me, that's where most people fall back asleep again.
And that's where it hits you. Seeing the truth doesn't automatically change your life. It just removes your excuses. Because now you know. You know you've been drifting. You know you've been avoiding. You know you've been choosing comfort over growth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But here's the uncomfortable part. Awareness creates pressure. Because now there's a gap between who you are and who you know you could be. And that gap, that's where most people break. Not because they're weak, but because it's easier to go back to sleep than to live with that tension. So what do? They distract themselves again. They go back to old habits. They tell themselves, I'll deal with it later. And just like that, they fall back asleep. But you're still here. So let's not pretend. You've felt that gap, haven't you? That quiet voice in your head saying, this isn't it. This isn't who I'm supposed to be. And then another voice comes in. Relax, it's fine. Don't overthink it. And just like that, you silence the one voice that was trying to wake you up. I used to do that all the time. I used to think something was wrong with me. Why can't I stay consistent? Why do I start things and never finish them? Why do I feel motivated one day and completely lost the next? I thought I lacked discipline. I thought I lacked clarity. But the truth? I was just disconnected. Disconnected from myself, from what I actually wanted, from the fact that I was living on autopilot. And autopilot feels safe because it doesn't require effort. You don't have to think. You don't have to decide. You just react. Wake up, scroll, work, eat, distract, sleep, repeat. It's predictable, comfortable, and quietly destroying your potential. Now here's the part nobody tells you. Your life isn't built on big decisions. It's built on unconscious patterns, tiny ones. The way you respond when something gets hard. The way you talk to yourself when you fail. The way you avoid things that matter and justify it. That's your real life. Not your goals, not your plans, your patterns. And if your patterns are unconscious, your life will be too. Let me ask you something. Why do you keep doing things you know aren't good for you? Why do you keep delaying things that could actually change your life? Why do you keep choosing short-term comfort over long-term peace? Hold that question. Don't answer it yet. Because the answer isn't what you think. It's not laziness. It's not lack of discipline. It's identity. You act like the person you believe you are, every single time. If you believe you're inconsistent, you'll act inconsistent.
If you believe you struggle to stay focused, you'll keep proving that to yourself. And the worst part? You don't even question it. You just accept it as who you are. But this is where it gets real. That identity, it's not fixed. It's just repeated. You didn't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to be this version of myself. You became it through repetition, through habits, through thoughts you kept thinking without noticing. And now, you're living inside a loop. Same thoughts, same actions, same results, different day. That's what being asleep really looks like. Not doing nothing, but doing the same thing over and over, expecting something to change. And yeah, that sounds obvious. But look at your life. Where are you repeating patterns you already know don't work? Be honest. Is this you or just me? Because once you see it, you realize something powerful. You don't need a new life. You need a new pattern. And patterns don't change with motivation. They change with awareness, followed by intentional action. Small shifts, repeated daily. That's it. But here's where people mess it up. They try to change everything at once. New routine, new mindset, new goals. And it works for a few days. Then they crash and they say, see, I knew I couldn't do it. No, you just overwhelmed a system that was built on consistency, not intensity. Change doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing differently, and doing it again, and again, and again, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. But wait, this next part changes everything. Because there's one moment, one decision, that separates people who wake up from people who stay stuck forever. And it's not what you think. It's not a big breakthrough. It's not some life-changing event. It's quieter than that. Smaller. Almost invisible. But once you understand it, you'll never look at your choices the same way again.
It's the moment you choose not to escape. That's it. Not a big decision, not a dramatic change, just one moment where you feel discomfort, and instead of running, you stay. Sounds simple, but this is where everything shifts, because your entire life has been built on escape patterns. Feeling bored? Scroll. Feeling stressed? Avoid. Feeling uncertain? Delay. And every time you escape, you train your brain to do it again, stronger, faster, automatically, until eventually you don't even notice it. It just becomes who you are. Now here's the part that changes everything. You don't break this cycle with motivation. You break it by interrupting it. Once. Just once. You feel the urge to escape, and you don't. You sit with it, the discomfort, the resistance, the voice telling you to quit, and instead of reacting, you observe it. And something strange happens. It loses power, not instantly, but enough for you to choose differently. That moment, that's you waking up. Not fully, but enough to take control. Now here's the crazy part. Most people never experience this, not because they can't, but because they never pause long enough. They react too fast. They escape too quickly. They stay asleep. But you're starting to see it. And once you see it, you can't go back. Now let me ask you something. What's your go-to escape? Be honest. Is it your phone, procrastination, overthinking, or pretending you'll start tomorrow? Yeah, everyone has one, and it's not random. It's your brain's way of protecting you from discomfort.
But here's the twist. That discomfort, it's not the enemy. It's the doorway. Everything you want is on the other side of it. Clarity, confidence, discipline. They don't come from comfort. They come from facing what you've been avoiding. But here's where it gets real. You don't need to face everything. Just one thing. One moment. One decision where you don't escape. That's how it starts. Now imagine this. You're about to do something you've been avoiding. Your mind kicks in. Later. Not now. You're tired. Same pattern. But this time, you catch it. You pause. And instead of obeying it, you act anyway. Small action. Maybe just starting. Maybe just 5 minutes. But you do it. And in that moment, something shifts. Not outside. Inside. Because now, you've broken the loop. Just once. And once is enough to prove you're not stuck. You were just unconscious. And awareness? That's power. Now here's the deeper truth. You don't need to win every battle. You just need to win more than you lose. That's it. Because every small win rewires your identity. I'm someone who acts. I don't always escape. I can handle discomfort. And that identity? It compounds, day by day, choice by choice, until one day you don't even recognize the old version of yourself, the one who kept avoiding, the one who kept delaying, the one who felt stuck. Because now you move differently, think differently, decide differently. And it all started with one moment you didn't run. Now here's the question most people avoid. If you know this, why don't you do it? Why do you still escape? Why do you still delay? Why do you still choose comfort, even when you know better? Don't answer that yet, because the answer is the final piece. And once you understand it, you stop blaming yourself and start taking control.
Because here's the truth most people never say out loud. You don't avoid action because you're lazy. You avoid it because you're protecting an identity. Read that again. Every time you don't start, every time you delay, every time you escape, you're not just avoiding discomfort, you're avoiding a version of yourself you're not ready to become yet. Because becoming that version, it requires letting go of who you've been. And that's uncomfortable. Familiar struggles feel safer than unfamiliar growth, even if those struggles are slowly destroying your potential. So your mind does what it's designed to do. It protects the current identity. It says things like, "This is just who you are. You've always been like this. Don't try too hard. You'll just fail again." Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. And familiarity feels safe. Now this is where everything clicks. You don't change your life by forcing actions. You change it by redefining who you are. Not through words, through proof. Small, repeated proof. You act once, even when you don't feel like it. That's evidence. You do it again. That's reinforcement. You keep going. That becomes identity. I'm someone who shows up. I'm someone who doesn't run. I'm someone who follows through. Not because you said it, but because you lived it. And once that identity takes hold, everything becomes easier. Not easy, but aligned. Your actions match your beliefs. Your habits match your goals. There's no internal fight anymore, just direction. Now think about this.
If you stayed exactly the same for the next year, what would your life look like? Same habits, same excuses, same patterns, just more regret. And that's the real cost. Not failure, regret. Because failure teaches you something. Regret just sits there, quiet, heavy, unavoidable, and it grows over time. That's what you're really trying to escape. Not discomfort, future regret. So here's the shift. You stop asking, "Do I feel like it?" And you start asking, "Is this the person I'm becoming?" That's it. Every decision, every moment, aligned or not. And when you start thinking like that, your standards change. You don't negotiate as much. You don't overthink small things. You just act. Because now, you're not chasing results. You're building identity. And identity drives everything. Now imagine this version of you, the one who doesn't need motivation, the one who doesn't rely on perfect conditions, the one who doesn't escape when things get uncomfortable. Calm, clear, consistent. Not because life is easy, but because you've stopped running from it. That version of you? It's not far away. It's built in moments. Moments where you choose differently. Moments where you stay instead of escape. Moments where you act instead of delay. And those moments, they're available to you every single day. So here's the real question. Not, can you change? You can. Not, do you know what to do? You do. The question is, will you actually choose differently when it matters? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because this moment, right now, this is where you either go back to sleep or finally wake up. If this made sense, don't ignore that feeling. That's awareness. And awareness is rare. Most people never reach this point. So if you're here, don't waste it. Say something. Not for anyone else, for yourself. Because this isn't about watching another video. It's about becoming someone who finally takes control. If this hit home, don't just scroll, subscribe, and start choosing a life you're actually awake in.